My name is Gerald Padilla, and I'm an educator. I'm a publisher, and I like promoting Latino literature, Latin American literature, um, within the United States and also abroad. I was born in Los Angeles uh, and raised in California for the first half of my life. I went to public schools in California, and then my last year in high school, we moved to Texas. So we were in the valley for I was in the valley for about another 15 years. Um, and that's where I met my wife, and she was into literature and poetry and publishing, and she got me involved, and it's something that we've enjoyed doing since then.
Okay, cool. Can I have a little bit of your educational history?
Yeah. I started off at after graduating from high school. I went to South Texas College there in McAllen, and afterwards I went to, at that time, UTPA, and I graduated with a bachelor's in Spanish and a minor in psychology. And then I moved on to Sam Houston for a master's in education and instructional leadership, and now I'm in Lubbock, Texas, living with my wife.
Okay. You said that you're an educator. How are you an educator?
Yes, so I've been working for a while in public schools at the high school level and at the middle school level, in the ELA department and the math department. At the moment, I'm what they call a special education co-teacher, and my job is to assist students who need a little bit of extra help within the classroom. Um, and so I go in there and I assist with accommodations and modifications for our special education students.
Wow, I did not know that about you because can you help me understand your organization? Because from what I've been able to find online is Jade Publishing, you have a publishing house. You run Latino Book Review.
Correct.
Excuse my pronunciation, on the FeIPoL, which is like a community organization, right?
The
Here in the valley. And then LAFA, correct?
Correct.
Which is another organization.
Yes.
I didn't even know about your educational or stuff that you do. You do a lot. And specifically, you do a lot for the valley. And currently, you're living in LA, right?
Well, currently, I've been in Lubbock for a year already. Yeah.
Okay, Lubbock, Texas.
And we just, a year ago we were in the valley, and we were there for quite a while, and the majority of our projects were held there. For example, FeIPoL, the Latin American Poetry Festival. And we did that for 3 years while we were there, and we had poets come from different parts of the U.S., Mexico, Puerto Rico. We brought poets from different parts of Latin America, and it was a great thing. The community in the valley enjoyed it, and we enjoyed it a lot, and we did that for 3 years. Now that we're in Lubbock, it's kind of on pause for a second. We're not sure if it's something that we want to continue here in Lubbock, or maybe hopefully we go back to the valley and continue it there.
Okay. So I was interested to know, why do you put so much effort in the Rio Grande Valley? Like, not many people do that. Your name is out there in so many organizations, publishing houses. You have a magazine that specifically targets Latino book reviews.
Yeah. Well, so the valley is very, very important, especially to me. No, while I was growing up in California in the San Joaquin Valley, um, it wasn't something that was very noticeable. Having Latin American youth or be part of these types of project. It was if you're Mexican American, if you're Latino, you're kind of expected to work and not so much focus on academics or literature. And when I got to the Valley, I gave me a completely different outlook of what was possible. To me, the Valley um, is is a place of opportunities. There's so much going on culturally, and I mean, most of us are Mexican or Mexican American, either first, second, or third generation, or so on and so forth. But I saw myself in all the community. I saw myself in the educators. I saw myself in some of the professors, and it kind of made me think of um, you know my possibilities or the possibilities of academics and literature a little bit different. And when I started getting together with a lot of these members who were in the literature world, I became fascinated, and I felt like there was so much work undone and so much that could still be accomplished by creating some of these platforms. And so we've been working hard since then. And you mentioned how there's a lot going on, and yeah, I mean it's true. It's I have a full-time job as an educator, but then I also have another full-time job as someone who promotes literature and culture, and I'm passionate about both of them, and I feel that it's my responsibility, my duty to promote both of them.
You mentioned editor and then cultural promoter, but you're also a translator and you
Mm-hmm.
have a publishing house.
Mm-hmm.
What title are you most proud of? Like, I mean, that's
um,
four. Like, those are four careers.
yes. Well, I'm proud of all of them, but I think I'm especially proud of. Oh, if I had to choose, it's so difficult, because I am very proud and passionate of all of them. But um, at the moment, right now, I think um, Latino Book Review is becoming something very promising for our community in the United States and also internationally. Um, and it's also something that I began completely alone. So it's kind of like my baby. So I think I'm especially proud of um, creating that platform, um, and it's been hard it's been available already for 3 years. Um, there's been a lot of support, a lot of volunteering hours. Most of the editors are all the editors actually are volunteers. Um, so it's a matter of collaboration. So I think we've been able to kind of put this very solid platform uh, in a short period of time, and it's had great results.
And talking a little bit about the Latino Book Review, it is on a website or is it print?
So it started off as completely an online platform. It was just the website, and we started off doing reviews of books and different genres, and then we started including some short articles, and even the reviews themselves are very brief. The idea was just to kind of give people who might be interested in these books um, uh, a brief synopsis or summary, if you will, of what the books are about. and a quick link to where they can purchase them. So it started off completely online for the first, I want to say 2.5 years. And just last year, we decided to do a print, magazine. So now we have the online platform, but we also have the annual magazine, which is very similar to what you're going to find on the website, with the exception that on the magazine itself we have original works. So in the website we do mostly reviews and articles, but we don't publish any original poetry or stories or anything of that nature. And on the magazine, we do have original works by authors from all over the U.S. and abroad, from different parts of Latin America also.
Okay, so that's how it started, because I was looking the other day at the website and it was pretty interesting. There was an article of, you don't just talk about like books. You also have articles and blogs about interesting facts. Like you had one about La Llorona, the history of it. Yeah, like, and I thought that was, because I always grew up hearing about the Llorona, my grandfather swearing that he saw her, but like I had no idea where it originated from. I even read this old book that like talked about one of the stories about it, which there's a bunch, but this is like details, like, and goes back to where it started, and it was interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know much about it either. That my brother was actually the one that wrote that article, and he's kind of like the historian of the family. And he was telling me about what some of the things that he had read about La Llorona and the Aztec codices. And I told him, we have to have some of that, an article of that on Latino Book Review, because I think that a lot of people would be interested in finding out where some of these things or some of these stories originate.
Yeah, like it was a really good article. I hope people go read that. I was gonna ask you, do you consider, like, you surround yourself with so much art, do you consider yourself a writer?
Kind of hard. I don't consider myself a writer necessarily. I've collaborated, I've written some things. I have, yeah, you're completely right. I surround myself with a lot of writers and poets, and sometimes they'll invite me and say, hey, send us something for for a given anthology, and I'll go ahead and write something and send it. But I don't necessarily consider myself a writer. I've also collaborated, for example, with writing a children's book with my wife, Rosy, and the book is called No Yolca Yolca, Animals of My Land, Animales de mi Tierra. And so I've collaborated, writing some children's books and some poetry, but I don't think I consider myself a writer necessarily. I mean, I'm someone who writes, but I don't know.
So going to your publishing, Jade Publishing, why choose publishing as, because that's your latest one, right? That you've branched out to?
Yes, correct. Yes, my wife and I started Jade Publishing, I think also about 3 years ago. And so your question was again,
why choose publishing? Why branch out to publishing? Because that's hard in itself. That's a whole thing, and you guys are successful at it.
It is also very 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 difficult. So kind of the backstory of that was I was in one of my middle school classes. That year I was teaching ELA, and in ELA we usually, as part of the curriculum, we talk about Greek and Roman mythology, and we do that every year. And the kids are pretty good at it. They know these stories. They've seen them on Disney. They know all about it. And I'm in a classroom in Donna, Texas, teaching to a classroom full of Mexican kids, Mexican or Mexican American children. And as we're talking, I try to compare the mythology that we're talking about with something that related to us, that we actually know very little of. And I try to talk about, the Aztec mythology, and to my surprise, almost no child knew even who the Aztecs were. Here we are in Donna, Texas, in a border town, like 15, 20 minutes away from Mexico. And these Mexican American children who are in 6th grade don't even know, anything about who the Aztecs are or were. And so I kind of take a step back and try to get a sense of how much, our students know or don't know. And so I start asking about pyramids, and I asked my classroom, hey kids, so where do we have pyramids? And everybody raises their hands and they all say, oh, Egypt. And it's like, yes, correct, but where else do we have pyramids? And then nobody knew. And to me, as someone who's Mexican in a classroom of Mexicans, for all of the students not to know that their parents or their heritage, their culture, right across the border, we have tons of pyramids in Veracruz, in Mexico, and in southern Mexico, Mexico City. They are descendants of this great culture that they know nothing about. They don't know who the Aztecs or Mayans are. They don't know where pyramids are in this continent. And to me, that was just kind of heartbreaking. And so I go home and I tell my wife all about it, and how our kids don't know our stories, where these things come from. And so her response was, well, you have to provide the stories. And my question was like, how? And it was, to my surprise, she says, well, just create a publishing company and publish these stories. And to me, it was just like, it's too much work. Like, how am I gonna, I already have a full-time job. How am I gonna get into that? But then her answer was, you can either do something about it or just let things be how they are, how they've always been. And then nothing will change, right? And so we decided to take that step and take on this, very difficult role, roles as publishers, and it's been very rewarding. Yes, a lot of work, but at the same time, it's been very rewarding to see, the response, and to see children learning about their heritage and culture.
That's very good, because that type of history, our Mexican American, like honest American history, is considered prehistory. It's not recorded that well. Like, even looking like 20 years ago, the history between 1776, that's like before then, it's, oh, there was Native Americans. By the way, they were there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. So
Mm-hmm.
the publishing company would really open up a field where, like, it would give people an opportunity to record that as much as they can, because a lot of it was destroyed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And
foundations were destroyed.
And till this day, it's still being erased, because our public school systems are very Eurocentric. It all starts when as far as U.S. history, with the English arriving, and so it's completely Eurocentric. So we're not given an opportunity to learn anything about natives, and much less the natives of our neighboring countries. So we wanted to be able to provide some of these stories to our community.
So how did you begin to start the publishing company? Because it's a full-blown company, right? How do you begin to start it?
Well, we started off by creating the online platform and started getting ourselves familiar with some of the, programs that a lot of the publishing companies use, um, InDesign and those different programs. So that in itself, learning how to navigate those programs, was kind of intense at first. So there's a lot of learning that goes on,
And that was all through you.
and that was
You guys had to
that
learn.
was through us, and also some other people who had already done it. Getting workshops, looking online, googling information. One of the advantages that these newer generations have is that we have all the knowledge available online. So if there's anything that you want to do, absolutely anything, you're able to do it if you do your research, you do your homework, and you just have enough passion to do it. So I think it started off with that, just kind of creating a platform, getting familiar with the tools and instruments used. And then once we had that, we started off with our first book that I worked on with my wife, and it is a trilingual book in English, Spanish, and Nahuatl, of course, the language of the Aztecs. And we had somebody from Mexico who spoke the language translated, so we could make it a trilingual book for children. So that was kind of our starting point, was to kind of put something out there that we thought would represent the other books that we wanted to publish. Cultures about us and our heritage. So after that, we started receiving submissions. We started looking at the other work, and we've been happy to have published a lot of very interesting books for children, and poetry, and novels that again reflect some of these stories that are not usually told in our public school systems.
You mentioned about getting submissions. Do you have any advice for writers to entice publishers?
Oof, I think it really depends on the publishing company. I sometimes the publishing world can be difficult and strange, and it deals a lot. There's a lot of rejections, and it could be frustrating sometimes for a lot of writers. But I think the first step is getting out there, participating in some of these smaller projects, creating community with other writers, trying to find your voice and the type of stories that you want to tell. And when it comes to publishing companies, it also has a lot to do with what those companies are interested in, and some of the different topics and stories that they're looking forward to publishing. There's publishing companies who look for very specific topics, who look for very specific types of stories, genres. So you have to kind of, I think as an author, you have to kind of look at what's out there and try to find something that matches the stories that you're trying to publish. So I mean, going back to your question, I don't think there's one easy way to just kind of entice publishing companies. It's really a combination of factors that come into play. Your experience as a writer, what you are writing, and just kind of what the publishing company is looking for at that moment, at that particular moment. So all the stars kind of have to align for it to happen.
Any upcoming events for any organizations or anything that we should look forward to?
Well, Latino Book Review will be releasing its 2020 issue in January. So the call for submissions is already out there. If you go to our Facebook page, you can see our call for submissions. If you go to our website, www.latinobookraeview.com, you can also see a call for submission. It'll be open until the 30th of November. So it's not only literature, it's also visual arts. So it's poetry, fiction, nonfiction, essay, photography, any type of visual arts. It's also open to them, and it's going to be a very interesting issue. It'll have the world-renowned author Isabel Allende, who's a legend in the world of Latin American literature. So to be able to be on that same issue, I think will be very important for the authors who get selected and published.
Interesting. All right, so now in closing, I have a few hard-hitting questions right here. What is your favorite author?
Oh, that is hard.
Yeah.
Oh, that's such a hard question, because there's lots of great authors out there, but and I think at the same time we kind of change what we like on a yearly basis, or as we grow, our choices kind of also change. But one of the best books that I've read lately, by one of our authors in Jade Publishing, is El Rinche by Christopher Carmona, and that talks about Texas history and Mexican American history, and some of the things that happened here to our people, and some of these stories that are not heard in Texas history. So I would really encourage folks to read El Rinche. That is a magnificent book. I've not only from me, but I've heard from other people that once they start reading that novel, they have to finish it that same day. It's one of those books that if you start reading, you have to finish it that same day. It's just that good. So I would really recommend El Rinche by Christopher Carmona.
So he's my professor. He's a really great professor.
Really yeah, he is, and he's a great guy, and he's a great author.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean, thank you for sitting down with me and working with me.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you inviting me.